Hi, and welcome to the latest edition of Enlightened Espresso. I've explained on the other videos why I'm wearing my Horned Frog hoodie. Our younger son, Gabriel, is headed off to Texas Christian in 2 weeks, and this reminds me of how proud I am of him.
Proud father.
A proud father. So thanks for letting me dress down today.
Good.
So we wanted to talk on this episode about science and Buddhism, because so much of science, so many topics in science relate directly to Buddhism. And the more they discover, the more I believe they learn how beneficial the teachings of Buddhism are. Mm-hmm. And so when we talk, we were talking off camera a little bit about neuroplasticity. Mm-hmm. and the science behind that. Can you talk about that from a Buddhist perspective and how it ties in with science?
Neuroplasticity is basically how the brain regenerates itself, right? How renew itself. And the process of renewing in Buddhism is the number one practice to renew oneself and constantly see oneself not from the old point of view. And it's really very interesting because the Buddha always taught about how you can be in the moment and see things. So don't stay in the past, don't stay in the present, stay right here. And so you see the movement of the rivers. One day the Buddha told his disciples, look at this is how everything's moving. But the consciousness is behind is how we can renew to see things without stuck in the past or the future. So our judgment cannot be formed, but we always look at things fresh. But I think look at things fresh is what we're talking about the brain. The brain is always young. You look at, the kids always look at things very fresh. And actually in Zen, there is called the beginner's mind. That's what they call, in English called the beginner mind, but for the real translation is the mind that always begins. And that is how the brain should be. They always have a new pathway, they see things new, and they don't get old. And neuroplasticity is simply the science that how do you keep the brain to grow young.
So it's the regeneration of the pathways within the brain?
I think that is the implication. But for the Buddhist practice, it's always about how you think. How do you, for example, if every day you just simply watch your breath, then it's not the neuroplasticity of the spiritual path. But every day you visualize certain things, and every day you see how the thing you visualize maybe become more and more solid, and then the growing, the different. So we visualize, lotus flower, for example, and how the lotus grow from the mud, and it's grow out into the water and into the space. So, and the water is the body. So it helps us to have the picture that you don't see in reality, but it has the physical, philosophical, and spiritual meaning, and they grow out of the subconscious into the conscious, into the superconscious, and it helps us to have a very dynamic growth inside our psyche, and therefore the brain needs to support that growth, and therefore the brain have to produce a new pathway. So that's what the Buddhists say in the past. Now you're talking about, okay, build a new pathway in the brain, right? And in order to build a new pathway, you have to have new neurons.
Right. And so if we look at this though through through meditation, through disciplined meditation, mm-hmm. Are you teaching your brain to access? You're creating new pathways, but is it accessing different parts of your brain?
Of course. The whole part, the brain have maybe about 43 trillion cells and whatever in there. The body, I'm sorry, the whole body, but the brain, I don't know how many billions of cells, but they have to engage, interact, and integrate, and then produce new pathway. And that's what the Buddhist view is about life. We keep creating, we keep building new things and never get stuck. That's the whole concept of neuroplasticity in terms of spiritual terms, in terms of spiritual practice. So when we cultivate, we visualize, and we see things through a different lenses, and we don't get stuck. For example, I come out and I see you, and I'd be very happy, oh, see you, blah, blah, blah. And then if you say something and you hurt me, then if my brain is good, my Buddhist philosophy practice is good, then a day later I should be able to look at you again and be friend again.
With renewed freshness.
Outlook. The beginner mind, and just like the kid. So if that's the case, then that's called the Buddhist practice, the neuroplasticity of the Buddhist practice. That we look at people and we move on very quickly. If you want me to dig back into, okay, the old past, yeah, we can dig back in what you say to me, but it's not important. Important is now. We can always begin new, and our mind is fresh, our body is fresh, and we keep moving on. And because of that, we can keep making friends, turn enemies into friends, see people, everyone has potential to be better.
And we've talked in the past about relativity and what Einstein discovered, but that's something that's a deep practice in Buddhism as well. Can you help make that connection? help me understand that, or help viewers understand that connection between Einstein's relativity and the philosophy of Buddhism.
I don't know, relativity is a very big theories about the universe. There's so much thing in there. So I don't know where to begin, but I think one of the big thing about the way Einstein sees things is that he doesn't see things like a fixed idea, that's a fixed thing. He sees things in motion, he sees things is growing, he sees things is energy, and the energy and the material, they are one. He sees the universe, it's just simply the interplay of the light and darkness into the oneness. So that is what I understand from the point of view of the Buddhist, that we see everything, it's just the yin and yang, the black and white, everything, and all the range of colors in between, they all just had its own space. And therefore, we have less and less judgment toward things happen, but we have more and more the love and the openness to accept. I think that is kind of relativity theory for the Buddhist.
And how about time? Because one of the things he said is that time is relative, right? And so time travel may actually be possible. How do the Buddhists see time and with respect to that relativity?
The time in the Buddhist is very much a circular. It's not like linear. You can go all the way there, but circular meaning, okay, you grow and then you get old and you die and you come back to this world and you keep going like that, reincarnation, right? And you keep it over and over again for many lifetimes, and you may change your forms. That's the ways that the ancient Buddhists talking about how life is not in one moment and then done. Well, there are many lives in the future, and many lives have passed as well. And because of that, you look at everything in a way we call relativity, meaning don't get fixed into anything, don't transfix, because everything is keep moving, and therefore you don't see the relevancy about, okay, I hate that person. Hey, you hate that person here, but what about in the past? Maybe you and that person a very good friend. Maybe in the future you marry that person. You don't know exactly how it is, and so the concept of time help us in terms of in a circular time. We have less judgment, and we know that we all connected in somehow, and that connectedness is very interesting in the world of relativity, because suddenly Einstein found out that, okay, the space is curved, meaning the sun, when it moves into the curving space, everything falls into that curving line, right? Mm-hmm. So, and that is what we call the karma. You have the karma and you pull everything towards you. And the karma is my judgment toward you. It's the karma. Okay, I hate you. That creates the motion in time. You get that, right?
I do.
The sun moves, and because the space curves, so everything moves along with the sun, like the planets. So, and that's what we call karma. The gravity, it's just like karma. And so, in Buddhism, when we talk about relativity, we talk about the karmic force that we create, but we don't know how to define it. It turned out that field of energy is exactly like my anger towards you is the karmic energy, the karmic field that pull me and you into a direction that maybe I don't like, but I be pulled into it, and so as you. So that's called relativity.
So how do we be?
So in other words, the interesting part of the whole thing, you asking about neuroplasticity, the Buddhists didn't know how to get it into the modern language and with science and with mathematical expressions, but they intuitively know that we had to be a beginning and fresh mind all the time. They don't know about relativity, but you have to prove E equal mc squared. They don't know how to do that, but they understand that time is created because of this karmic that we create between each other. So they see that, and so the relativity theory, even that big, but for us, we see it, you know, 1,000 years ago, we see how every action of us will lead and pull other into that field of action, the field of energy. Make sense to you?
It does. It does. So when we come back to neuroplasticity, though, I think they're starting to uncover medical reasons why meditation, right? Why that generation of new neurons and regeneration is so important in healing.
Very.
And how does it help cure, say, disease or right? How is this discovered by Buddhists? And help me get started if I want to feel more healthy.
I don't know the Buddhists discover and know that they're discovering something. It's just a traditional, the Eastern people in Oriental, they're just doing it because the tradition tells them to do it. For example, if you recite the mantra, the brain, they grow the pathway, because you know how to recite and you have to know how to listen to it, and you know how to recite very fast, and you have to follow the recitation, and then you chant the mantra, and that's why your brain has to cope with different mantra, different speed, different visualization, and so you force yourself to create the new image, new reality in your head. And you ask me, how do we start to do it? I would say that, okay, let's start with the very simple mantra that you're not familiar with. Because it's something I'm familiar with. For example, okay, this is a good day, this is a good night, this is a good, that's not a good mantra. So you need something that you challenge the brain a little bit. So recite some mantra and have some visualization. For example, I would suggest the first thing is visualize the lotus. Easy. Because the lotus is something very pure. It's representing something we call the mind that can rise and conquer all these defilements.
Grow from the mud,
get out of this stuckness that you have. So it's a very powerful image, and it's helped the mind to absorb that and build the pathway to support that that image.
So last question before we end. Then why is it that so much of meditation starts with just that simple breathing? That's the entry point.
Entry point is breathing, because that's something that we all have. And that's the early teaching is Anapana. The Buddha said, that's how I enter the path. But after you enter the path slowly, you have many other dharma, many practice. But the breathing is easy. And when you breathe, now we know that if you breathe slowly, your heart will beat slowly. And Herbert Benson, the doctor in the 60s, called it the relaxation response. So we know it's connected. Whatever the Buddhists have been doing, now we see science try to prove it, try to say, oh, that's right. But it had been practiced as a tradition, that there's no claiming on any of this stuff.
Well, there's so much more we want to unpack, including quantum physics, and we hardly even touched on the others. So I'm sure we'll revisit these subjects again in other episodes. But
let's do quantum physics next time. This is interesting. And I still remember that I met on the elevator the Brian Swimme, one of the greatest string theorists. And so we should talk about it next time, about that book, The Beautiful Universe. Yeah.
All right. I'm looking forward to it.
Okay.
Thanks again for joining us, Master.